I've been a Muslim for 16 years, but in the past few years, I have been bothered by some reoccurring issues which have forced me to question my Islamic faith. And recently I have decided to finally leave Islam, and in this video I will explain why. Now, I don't think it's fair for Muslims to consider me as some kind of traitor or sellout, because over the years I've done my best to be faithful and loyal to Islam. I did not play games with Islam, and I took my Islamic faith very seriously. And whenever I found any Islamic teaching difficult, problematic, or controversial, I always did my best to research the issue for myself and for my fellow Muslims to resolve it. I certainly was not perfect, but I think very few people would question my sincerity to Allah, Muhammad, and to Islam. So I can assure you that I was committed to this religion called Islam. The answer to this question is the Quran and Muhammad and their teachings on moral standards and conduct. You see, over the past few years, I have found that I am no longer able to defend the Quran and especially Muhammad's morals and conduct. In the past, I have done my best to defend Islam, and in particular to defend Muhammad from the claims and charges made against him. I tried my best to love Muhammad, and I can prove I stood up for him and defended him many times. For example, I produced videos like "Was Muhammad Merciful?", where I tried to provide examples of Muhammad's good character, and my video "Who are the Islam Haters?", where I tried to refute and expose the anti-Islamic critics, and I made many more videos in which I defended Islam and Muhammad. Most of the time I was successful in defending Muhammad against those who were attacking his character, as I was well educated in Islam and I studied Islamic apologetics for years. However, while I was defending Islam, I had noticed many of the criticisms were actually valid and based on authentic early Islamic sources, and I found myself at a loss to find adequate, honest responses to them. But for the sake of brevity, in this video I will provide you with one example on the topic of sexual immorality. As shocking as it may seem, both the Quran and Muhammad teach that it's permissible, halal, to capture and rape female war captives, even if these women are married and their non-Muslim husbands are still alive. So let's investigate the Islamic sources to see what they say. The Quran in chapter 4 verses 22 and 23 informs Muslim men about the categories of women which they are forbidden to marry. But in ayah number 24 we read, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Also forbidden are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess. So we see here in the Quran an exception, an example where it is permissible, halal, for a Muslim man to marry a woman who already has a husband. But who are these women described as being owned or possessed by your right hand? For the answer, let us turn to the most famous commentator on the Quran, Ibn Kathir, who, while commenting on Quran chapter 4:24, said the following, quote, Allah said, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Also forbidden are women already married except those whom your right hands possess. The ayah means you are prohibited from marrying women who are already married. إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Except those whom your right hands possess, meaning except those whom you acquire through war, for you are allowed such women after making sure they are not pregnant. Imam Ahmad recorded that Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, "We captured some women from the area of Awtas who were already married, and we disliked having sexual relations with them because they already had husbands. So we asked the Prophet about this matter, and this ayah was revealed. وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Also forbidden are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess. Consequently, we had sexual relations with these women. This is the recording collected by At-Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, Ibn Jarir, and Muslim in his Sahih. Now at this point, maybe you're in a state of shock. Maybe you're even saying to yourself, this is impossible. The glorious Quran and the noble Prophet Muhammad would never teach such sexual immorality. Or maybe you're thinking there must be some other more positive interpretation to the Quran, chapter 4, verse 24. Or maybe you're even trying to convince yourself that the great Islamic scholar and the most famous Quran commentator, Ibn Kathir, is completely wrong and he has no idea what he's talking about. Brothers and sisters, I wish all of that were true, but unfortunately, when we investigate the matter further, things just get worse. For example, we read in the following hadith. In Sunan Abi Dawood, volume 2, hadith number 2155, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri narrated, the Messenger of Allah, meaning Muhammad, sent a military expedition to Awtas on the day of Hunayn, and they met their enemy, fought them, and defeated them. They took captives. فَكَأَنَّ أُنَاسًا مِّنْ أَصْحَابِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ تحرجوا من غشيانهن من أجل أزواجهن من المشركين. But some of the companions of the Messenger of Allah were reluctant or felt uncomfortable to have relations, meaning sex, with them, meaning the female captives, because of their pagan husbands. فأنزل الله في ذلك وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. So Allah revealed the Quranic verse, and forbidden are women already married except those whom your right hands possess. And this is again Quran chapter 4 verse 24, as we said. أي فهن لهم حلال إذا أنقضت عدتهن. Meaning they are lawful or allowed for them when they complete their waiting period. And this hadith, my brothers and sisters, is sahih or authentic. So this hadith informs us that the Muslim soldiers had a problem. They wanted to have sex with the female captives, but these women were already married and they had husbands who were still living. So Muhammad then claims to receive a revelation from Allah that instructs the Muslim men to wait for a period of time to ensure that the female captives are not pregnant. And then after that period, these Muslim men are allowed to go and have sex with these married women. Now ask yourself this question. How would you feel if your wife or any woman in your family was captured by some enemy soldiers, then forced to divorce her husband, then forced to marry one of those enemy soldiers, then forced to have sex with that enemy soldier whom she obviously hated? And all of this happened while her husband was still alive. Do you think that your wife, your sister, your daughter, or your mother would agree to have these things forced upon her in humiliation? No sane person in his or her right mind could defend the Quran and Muhammad on this issue. This is nothing more than legalized rape of married women. And I cannot believe that this is from God. So therefore, I am rejecting the Quran and Muhammad on this issue. I gave an example of the shocking, sexually immoral teachings of the Quran and Muhammad. I showed that the Islamic sources allowed Muslim soldiers to capture non-Muslim women in times of war. These women were already married, and their non-Muslim husbands were still alive. The Muslim soldiers desired to have sex with these women, so the Quran and Muhammad fulfilled their desires by forcing a divorce upon these weak, vulnerable, captured married women. What was the end result of such an illegal divorce? Well, the Muslim soldiers were then given the go-ahead to marry these women and have sexual intercourse with them. Now that we know what Muhammad taught and allowed his Muslim soldiers to do to married captive women, let us find out what Muhammad himself did to such women in similar situations. Let's look at the Islamic sources and talk about Muhammad's marriage to a Jewish female war captive, whom he purchased through the slave trade. Her name was Safiya, and she was already married to a Jewish man named Kinana. We will see that one of the reasons why Muhammad married Safiya was because she was extremely sexually attractive. Additionally, some of the narrations say that she was the daughter of an important Jewish tribal leader. In Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 3, Hadith number 2235, narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet came to Khaybar, and when Allah made him victorious and he conquered the town by breaking the enemy's defense, the beauty of Safiya bint Huyay bin Akhtab was mentioned to him, and her husband had been killed while she was a bride. Allah's Messenger selected her for himself. عن أنس بن مالك قال: قدم النبي خيبر فلما فتح الله عليه الحصن ذكر له جمال صفية بنت حيي بن أخطب وقد قتل زوجها وكانت عروسا فاصطفاها رسول الله لنفسه. Now you may be wondering how Sophia's husband was killed. Well, as grotesque and as shocking as it will seem, Muhammad had her husband Kinana brutally tortured by using fire, and then he was beheaded. Muhammad married her shortly afterward. So to add insult to injury, not only did Muhammad take this man's life and his wife, but he took this Jewish man's wealth also, as we read in the book called Sira Rasulillah, or the biography of the Messenger of Allah by Ibn Ishaq, on pages 514 and 515. Starting from the bottom we read, when the apostle, meaning Muhammad, had conquered Al-Qamus, the fort of Ibn Abu al-Huqayq, Safiya, who was the daughter of Huyay bin Akhtab, was brought to him along with another woman. Bilal, who was bringing them, led them past the Jews who were slain, and when the woman who was with Safiya saw them, she shrieked and slapped her face and poured dust on her head. When the apostle, meaning Muhammad, saw her, he said, "Take this she-devil away from me." He gave orders that Safiya was to be put behind him and threw his mantle over her, so the Muslims knew that he had chosen her for himself. If you read just a few lines down, it says about Safiya, she was the wife of Kinana ibn al-Rabi' ibn Abu al-Huqayq. Now let's continue reading where it says the rest of the affair of Khaybar. Kinana ibn al-Rabi', who had the custody of the treasure of Banu an-Nadir, was brought to the apostle, who asked him about it. He denied that he knew where it was. A Jew came to the apostle and said that he had seen Kinana going around a certain ruin every morning early. When the apostle, meaning Muhammad, said to Kinana, "Do you know that if we find you have it, I shall kill you?" He said yes. The apostle gave orders that the ruin was to be excavated, and some of the treasure was found. When he asked him about the rest, he refused to produce it. So the apostle, meaning Muhammad, gave orders to, quote, torture him until you extract what he has. So he kindled a fire with flint and steel on his chest until he was nearly dead. Then the apostle, meaning Muhammad, delivered him to Muhammad bin Maslama, and he struck off his head in revenge for his brother Mahmud. You just saw on page 515 of the biography that Kinana was also known as Ibn Abi al-Huqayq. So by reading the following hadith, we can match some important details and verify that Muhammad indeed had Kinana killed. In Sunan Abi Dawood, Volume 3, hadith number 3006, we read the following. About 3/4 down the page we read, so Ibn Abi al-Huqayq was executed, and their women and children were taken captive. The Arabic says, فَقُتِلَ ابْنَ أَبِي الْحُقَيْقِ وَسُبِيَ نِسَاؤُهُمْ وَذَرَارِيُّهُمْ. And according to the webpage sunnah.com, this same hadith is classified as authentic or Hasan according to hadith scholar Al-Albani. Now, as I mentioned, Muhammad married Safiya shortly after he had her husband executed. But if you're not already disgusted, it's even more shocking to find out that Muhammad was also responsible for the execution of her father and brother. We read in the History of At-Tabari, volume 39, page 185, quote, "While the Prophet was lying with Sophia, Abu Ayyub stayed the night at his door. When he saw the Prophet in the morning, he said, 'God is the greatest.' He had a sword with him. He said to the Prophet, 'O Messenger of God, this young woman had just been married, and you killed her father, her brother, and her husband, so I did not trust her not to harm you.' The Prophet laughed and said, 'Good.'" So it seems even Muhammad's companions were questioning such a marriage, and they feared for his safety, as no woman in her right mind would love a man who was responsible for the execution of her own family members. In fact, in one narration, it states that Sophia actually hated Muhammad. In a book called Dala'ilun Nubuwa by Imam al-Bayhaqi, volume 4, page 230, we read, quote, "قالت وكان رسول الله من أبغض الناس إلي قتل زوجي وأبي فما زال يعتذر إلي," which means, Sophia said, "I hated the Messenger of Allah more than any of the people. He had killed my husband and my father, therefore he kept apologizing to me." Additionally, we know that Muhammad purchased Sophia from a man named Dihya, who had already taken Sophia as his own female captive. Therefore, Muhammad purchased her through the slave trade. We read in Sunan ibn Majah, volume 3, hadith number 2272, عن أنس أن النبي اشترى صفية بسبعة أرؤس. It was narrated from Anas that the Prophet bought Sophia for 7 slaves, and this hadith is sahih or authentic. قال عبد الرحمن من دحية الكلب. One of the narrators, Abdul Rahman, said, "From Dihya al-Kalbi." Now, after reading about the story of Muhammad and Sophia in the biography and the supporting authentic narrations which validate that story, let me ask those of you who are Muslim or are considering converting to Islam, how do you feel about Muhammad's behavior? Do you honestly think that a woman whose husband, brother, and father were just killed would, within a couple of days or so, voluntarily choose to marry and have sex with the same man who was responsible for the deaths of her family members? Now you have some idea why I left Islam.
As a religion is a lie wrapped with some facts and truths.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!